Hey everybody, Raging Jeep here. It is time for transmission removal. So we're going to start that process now, and hopefully we'll do a good job. But who knows? Maybe we won't. Maybe we'll break some shit. Let's get into it. So here's the tool list that you'll need for this project. I didn't list shallow or deep sockets. You should have both, honestly, but you will absolutely need some deep sockets on a couple of these things. But if you don't have them, you can use a wrench, etc. But here's what you're going to need. So I already got the Jeep all prepped up. So I jacked up the back. It is a little bit higher than the front. Word on the street is that makes it a little bit easier to get the transmission out. I've already removed the skid plate. There's a separate video on that. And there is a floor jack temporarily holding up some of the weight of the transmission. But we will be using our new transmission jack for this job, and also these assorted tools. Most people would have most of these tools in your collection, with one exception: the 6-pointed E12 socket for the 2 bolts that are at the top of the bell housing. 6 bolts, 2 different sets of bolts hold on the bell housing. Well, technically 9. There's 3 little 1/2-inch screws. But yeah, so I laid all the tools that I think I'm going to need out. And I also wrote down the steps that I'm going to do because I wanted to try to do this more in a more orderly fashion. So this is the first time I've taken this organized of an approach. Normally, like everybody else, I'm up and down, rifling through my tools to find what I need. And hopefully this will make it go smoother. But once I'm all done, I'll put together a list of tools that I actually used and a written typed set of instructions, and I'll throw those in the video at the end. So first order of business, I removed already the front drive shaft from the pinion end on the front axle. I did that when I was doing some of the prep work. The next step is to remove the rear drive shaft from the pinion end here. So this is a 8mm socket, and we're gonna just take these off. There's 4 bolts, 2 bolts on each side, 4 bolts total. Little caps that go over the end of the U-joints. So I'll take these off. You can probably hear my 2 dachshunds barking their little brains out, as dachshunds do. I took the Jeep out of gear so I can rotate things around, make it easier. I'm going to put it in 3rd gear before we get into the actual transmission removal. 3rd gear is a good position for the gear stick to be in, to be able to pull it straight up and out. As I mentioned in the kickoff to this series, I am not a mechanic. And this is admittedly the first time I've done this job by myself, but I've seen it done and I've participated in it as a helper a number of times, so not totally without some savvy here. For those of you that may be noticing I'm not wearing gloves, that would be because I don't like wearing gloves. But Ernie, what about all the toxic chemicals? Yep, toxic chemicals. Toxic chemicals, aye. One trick that I learned a while ago that really has saved myself a lot of heartache is, before you go and remove this drive shaft, go ahead and get a clamp or something and clamp the ends, the caps on the U-joint, because if those caps fall off, there's needle bearings in there, and those needle bearings, they don't go back together no matter what you think your abilities are. All right, so that was that end. If you have a stock drive shaft and transfer case, you're going to have a you're going to be able to just pull that drive shaft off of the output shaft from the transfer case. It just slips off. If you put a slip yoke eliminator kit on, like I did, you will have a little more work to do. You're going to take off with mine with our 4 1/2-inch bolts. And so these bolts are good. So I've got my wrench instead, and there's that way. One of them is really great with socket, and then the others not so much. Yeah, so put this back in here. That requires me to do that each time. I just use like a screwdriver. 6-1. That's okay. I suppose. Nice and safe. Take these bolts off. Very exciting. Watching take these bolts off. Sure, how's that going to sound? That body's going to speed up the timelapse on that. Okay, there you go. There we go. Last bolt, and then careful again with the caps. Voila. So I'm going to clamp those caps as well. And away we go. Rear drive shaft out. Next step on the way. So next step is to take the front drive shaft off. As I mentioned, I already removed the pinion side of the drive shaft, and you'll notice I replaced the caps and the 8mm screws, bolts back into the pinion so they don't get lost. I did the same thing in the rear. I put everything back into its receptacles so that we don't lose them. So there is the point at which the front drive shaft goes into the transfer case. So we're gonna remove the 4 8mm bolts at the front or rear of the drive shaft, depending upon how you're thinking about it. Remove these. Honestly, last time this was off. Only 5 6 years ago. So, no, before. Obviously, my rebuilt transfer case. Go in. So, wearing my incredibly high quality socket set here is quality. Never do right. Well, now that my bride is back and we've checked in on our days, we'll continue removing these 8mm bolts. Oh my God, those are really in there. When you put these back in, you give them a little red Loctite. So yeah, getting them to break free is always fun. But once they're free, come on, they come out quite nicely. So we'll take this one off. I only got one bar. Put that one all the way around this way. That one was a good one. That was on tight. All right, that one's loose. As I'm looking at this, I got a little bit of leakage coming out of this too. Transfer case as well. So it's probably good that we're pulling this all out. All right, that's out. And now we're going to remove the strap, the bungee cord for the drive shaft, and now the whole shaft comes out. Being careful to keep track of the caps on this end. We'll put another clamp on it. Okie dokie. Now we're going to get into changing the starter. The best way to get to the starter is over the frame rail on the passenger side. So the camera angles are tough. So I'm just going to point out there's a bolt back here, and then there's another bolt head down under here. You can get this one from the bottom and this one from over the frame rail. And then you've got your electrical connections. I'm going to remove everything and take the starter completely out. You can remove just the 2 bolts and hang the starter. This is going to be down for a while, so I'm just going to bring the starter completely out. Safety tip: before you start doing any of this, disconnecting electrical connections, removing the starter, disconnecting its leads, make sure you disconnect your battery. I have a dual battery in here. Right now only one is hooked up, so I'm redoing that as well, but make sure you disconnect your battery. So here's what the starter looks like out, and this is a perfect example of what I consider to be quality engineering with an eye towards serviceability. The bottom bolt, 15mm. The top bolt, 14mm. The nut that holds the positive lead to the starter, 13mm. Why wouldn't you need 3 different wrenches to remove one device? So now we're going to remove the transmission mount from the bottom of the transmission. Should be 4 16mm, yes, bolts. right, settled a little bit. And now, all right. Now we're gonna jack that back up a little bit so I can slide it off the muffler mount. And this is where the I'm not a mechanic part comes in, because I don't remember what I did here. But the next step is to remove the shifting linkage here, and I could probably pop these out, but I'm going to go ahead and just remove the bracketry from the housing for two reasons. One, this is a bit chewed up, and so it looks like it's been taken off before, and so I think that's my cue. It is quite chewed up. So I'm gonna get a different socket. I got a 12 point, I'm gonna go get a 6-sided. All right, admittedly a little off camera shenanigans, but I got the 12 point banged on top of this. It looks like somebody hit it with an impact gun. I mean, I had to put way more effort into getting this bad boy off than I think I should have. And the head of this bowl, or nut, or whatever the hell it is, look at that, it's a nut. That nut is just shellacked. So then, let's see, can I get that? Of course I can't get that wrench on there. Why would I be able to? Let's try. This one is a little easier. Let's try getting this one. Nope, that one's tripping too. Well, let's get this off. These are all 14 millimeter. And then that'll slip off that with a little help of a screwdriver, and then off camera I'm going to go figure out this top nut and see what we can come up with. Alrighty. On to the next step. We're going to remove the slave cylinder. It's a 2 half-inch nuts, deep socket. It's times like this that I want my air tools. I'll be right back. Alrighty then, we're back. Let's go with loosen instead of tighten. made short work of that. So now we're just gonna pull this out and put this up on the side here. I'm gonna zip tie it up here in a second, but for now we're just gonna put it on over the frame rail. Looking good. Dirty. So now we're to the step where we're going to be removing the various electrical connections to the transfer case and transmission. There's 3 or 4 of them. They're all scattered across the top. So just make sure you remove them. Like here's one right here. They usually have little, they're usually a 2-hand job, and they usually have little locks on them. And then you'll see a lot of times here it's also zip tied, so you have to cut those as well. So I'm going to go ahead and do that off camera. So next up is the vent hose on top of the transfer case, and normally there's a little compression clip here, but mine's all the way back here. So again, the guy that stripped those nuts, looks like I've been driving around without this clip down here. Fortunately it's still on, but whoop, it just comes right off. So you got to disconnect that. So that's the next step. Next up we got the shifter. So up here there's a little collar, a little boot. You can remove that. See, that just comes right up like so. And then in here, and I'm just kind of feeling around. I'm not going to be able to do this one-handed, but there is a collar. It turns 1/4 turn clockwise. It's spring-loaded, and then it should pop up. So I'm going to do that and then show you what it looks like. All right. So a couple notes before we continue. I got the second E12 bolt out. Last time this was in, this transmission was out, I had it done at a shop, and so they put it back stock, and so all of the breather tubes and the wiring harness were clipped to all of the factory clip settings, and that second E12 is inconveniently located underneath of one of those. It's difficult to get at, so I cut the wire tie holding it there and made it a heck of a lot easier. That second one also, unlike the first one, which took practically a liquid wrench to get out, this one came right out. So it was easier to get at across the top of the transmission from the driver's side, because the muffler is in the way on the passenger side. But now all we have left are 4 bolts. So 2 through bolts and these 2 bolts here in the middle. So we're going to remove these 2 through bolts next. Then we're going to slide the transmission jack back under, lash the transmission down, and then we'll be able to pull the transmission out. So here we go. Actually, we're going to remove one more thing first. Right up here, not sure if you'll be able to see it. There it is, the CPS sensor. So we're going to remove that next. That's 2 11mm bolts. So we're going to do that. That sensor is on, for reference, it's on the top driver's side of the transmission. It's not terrible to get to, but it's still on top. Bolts come free pretty easily, at least for me. Broke it free and then finger tight. So there's one, and then the other one on the other side of that sensor. And that one is also now finger tight, so, or finger loose, whatever fingering method you prefer. You do you. Alright, so those two bolts are out. Remove pull the sensor straight out of the housing and just let it hang there. Alright. So there's that. Now, I believe, yeah, these are 18 mil. I do not have a wrench, and yeah, I'm not gonna be able to get the socket on this one. So I'll be right back. I gotta go get, for some reason I don't have an 18 millimeter wrench. I'll go get a crescent, be right back. All right, back with the crescent wrench. Get our little gun on here. Looks like we're done with that one. And then we'll hit this one as well. All right, that one's out. Now there's at least one. I think there's 3 half-inch, yeah, one here, one on top, one down here, and one on the other side, little screws. Gonna take those out. Those should be half-inch heads. Be right back. All right, yeah, these are half-inch. Take this one off on the bottom here. These aren't bolts, these are actually screws. So they look like that. There's one there, and then there's one up here. And then there's one on the other side that we're going to take off camera. All right, so the jack's back under, strapped down, and the only thing left is the 2 transmission bolts in the middle. Looks like those are 5/8. On there pretty tight. Let's try the other side. I'll be right back. Alrighty, the other one came out quite nicely. This one is torqued on with an inch of its life. So we're gonna, not sure what we're gonna do. We're gonna think on it. Well, what we're gonna do is use the right socket. I thought about it some more, and then thought to myself, well, is this an American standard bolt or is this a European bolt? And I went and got a 16 mil, and I fell right to it myself. 5/8 felt really snug. 16 felt even better. So with a little bit of take the slop out of it, and it comes out quite nicely. So the transmission is completely disassembled, disconnected, and should now be able to be walked back a little bit, and we'll see what happens. So let's clean up our workplace, get our parts out and tools out of the way, and be right back to try to pull this out. Alrighty, so we're gonna see what happens here, see if we can walk this back. I'm gonna go over to the other side, lower it down a little bit. Lower it a little bit. Give it a little wiggle. Yeah, I got a little gap in there. I can see the reference pins. Sometimes you might have to change the height a little bit, up and down. Keep giving a little wiggle. Might get a putty knife in there. Yeah, I got enough to get a screwdriver in there. Give it a little pry. We'll pry on that side, and we'll go here. There we go. And we're free. Oh yeah, look at that. Now she's all the way back. Now let's see. The $64,000 question. Can I get it out of the Jeep? And I believe the answer is not at the current height. Let's see. I might be able to get it out the back here. Now, regardless, transmission's out, and we're gonna start off on to the next project. So, hope you had fun watching this, and maybe you learned something. Maybe you learned what not to do. I know that's what I did. Hope to see you on the trail soon.